The Graduates is the 25th episode of the 4th season of Full House. This is directed by Joel Zwick, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. In general, it's a good episode. We have some good messages. There is one moment, though, that I really disagree with, and I will talk about that when we get there. I'm actually going to go through this one chronologically. Usually with Full House, just with the way the episodes go, I will talk about each part of the episode in turn, but with this one I'm going to go through things chronologically, and it starts off very sweetly with Joey playing the blues as Michelle has lost her piggy. It's very sweet, it's a nice introduction. We then find out that Danny has actually gone on a blind date. Where's Rusty's mother? I guess that relationship is over, and he's feeling a little old, and that is kind of reinforced when Michelle comes down the stairs ready to sing her graduation song, which is The Wheels on the Bus, which is absolutely adorable. And then DJ is writing her speech for graduation for graduating junior high, which I think as a Brit is a very strange concept. Graduating when you're that age, very bizarre. We don't have that in the UK. We don't graduate until we leave secondary school, and even then we don't graduate. We don't have graduation ceremonies. So for me, it's a strange concept, but clearly for Danny, this is just reinforcing the fact that he is old. And by old, I mean 1 year older than me. He's 33, which is terrifying. Is 33 really that old? I feel like it isn't. But also, if a 33-year-old were in a sitcom today, they definitely would seem younger than Danny does, or the characters in this do. I just feel like people today seem younger than they did in the 80s and 90s. I'm probably looking too much into it. Steph is then really jealous because DJ's graduating, Michelle's graduating, Stephanie isn't. Well, tough luck. It's not your day for graduation. We'll come back to that in a little bit. We are then with Danny, and he meets a woman called Kirsten, played by Jennifer Nash, and he decides to ask her out, and she says yes. It turns out, though, that she is 21, and age difference in general is not an issue. It's more about compatibility, and the show actually gives a really good thought on that, which we'll come to a little later on. But he asks Kirsten out, she says yes. She asks him if he likes slaughter, and he responds that he's pretty much non-violent, which I loved. And they're going to go to a concert later on. Meanwhile, Jesse is picking up Michelle from preschool. I loved how all of the children called him Uncle Jesse. I thought that was absolutely adorable. And then one of the kids calls him Monkey Head, and they start calling him Uncle Monkey Head. And then he's going to teach them a new song that's slightly cooler than The Wheels on the Bus. So they're quite happy that Uncle Jesse is helping out with their little graduation ceremony. We're then back at the house. Danny is getting ready to go out with Kirsten. He's wearing, I guess, cool young hip person clothing, but I think they could have made it a little bit more extreme. Kind of like the episode, I can't remember which one, the title of it, but it's the one where he's wearing leathers and he's trying to look really cool. That was a strong change, whereas this outfit doesn't seem dramatic a transformation enough. I think they could have done a little bit better with it, but it was fun to see him and Kirsten. Kirsten was dressed very, I guess, age appropriately. And when the family came in and they all just stood on the doorstep in front of the door and looked at Danny, it was a wonderful moment. I like the scenes when we have the family all clustered together. It's really nice to see. And obviously they're going out, and DJ thinks it's really cool that her father's going to see Slaughter, which I guess would make Danny feel really cool if his daughter is saying that. So Danny is currently in a good place. We're then at Michelle's graduation, and Jesse introduces them as Jesse's Little Rippers, and they're all rocking out, and it's cute. It's a brief scene, but it's adorable. And when they all came out in their little graduation outfits, it's very sweet. Interestingly, we do have graduations for nursery children in the UK. I don't know why. I mean, I know the purpose is to help them get ready for going up to big school, if you like. But we never had that when I was younger, and I transitioned fine, so I'm not sure why this is a trend, or why it's only a trend for nursery children and not for older kids leaving primary school. It's very bizarre what traditions from the States we adopt and which ones we don't. Anyway, Stephanie still wants to graduate, and this is the bit I really hate. because the family decide to give her a very brief mock graduation and give her a pair of shoes. What an absolutely horrific idea. They're basically saying, well, this isn't your time for graduation, but we're not going to teach you that sometimes it's not going to be all about you. Instead, we're going to make it about you and give you a present to make you feel better. How ridiculous. That is terrible. It's like when somebody has a birthday, so the sibling gets a present. You're not teaching them that some days are not about them. And I think it's absolutely appalling. Thankfully, Stephanie is generally a kind person and she doesn't come across as being selfish or self-centered. So thankfully, it's not reinforcing those behaviors. But I still think it's a pretty diabolical message that just because Stephanie wasn't the center of attention, they had to do something to temporarily make her the center of attention and make her feel better because she wasn't getting attention. Hard luck, that's life. I thought it was a really terrible thing to include and a really bad practice to do, because you're just teaching her that if she isn't the center of attention, all she has to do is complain about it and she'll get to be center of attention. So, not a great idea. Danny then breaks it off with Kirsten, and this scene I really did like, because he told her that it's not just about the age gap, it's about the fact they have different interests. And that, to me, I know people have different ideas about age gaps in relationships, but to me that's the most important factor. Age itself is just a number. It's mostly about having the same interests. And obviously, personally, I would draw the line, a 16-year-old with an 80-year-old. But then, at the same time, I don't feel like they'd have the same interests or the same experiences. So, personally, I don't think that age is always an issue. It can be. But at the same time, as Danny points out, the real issue is whether or not you have things in common and whether or not you're compatible. And obviously, age can make people have different interests. And I think they handled the scene and Danny's delivery of his reasons really, really well. And then DJ comes down in her cap and gown and practicing her speech, and we get a lovely quote from Danny where he tells her, "Don't miss out on what's happening now just because you're waiting for something better to come along. You can't live in the future just like you can't live in the past." And I really need to hear that quite often. I am somebody who strives for a better tomorrow, and I will be happier tomorrow. Things will be better tomorrow, and there are benefits to thinking that way, but it also means that I often forget to live today because I'm working hard for a better tomorrow. And I think those words are pretty brilliant and pretty well delivered. And then we end with Danny once again reminding himself that he's 33 now, not 21. And I just think 33 is not that old, Danny. It really isn't. So it's a nice episode. I think there are some really great messages. Giving Stephanie the center of attention just because she complained about not being the center of attention doesn't work well for me at all. I think that's really bad practice. As I said, Stephanie isn't somebody who seems spoiled or selfish or anything, so I don't think it will do her any long-term damage, but I absolutely do think there will be people watching this in a similar situation, and they'll think, oh, my child's complaining because they're not center of attention. I'll give them their own graduation and make them center of attention just so they get their own way. It's not great. It really isn't. That's how you raise entitled people. Thankfully, not so much the case with Stephanie. Other than that, it's a great episode and definitely one that I enjoyed.